The next topic I want to go into today is about the Knicks and what they're going to be doing at the deadline. Potential centers they could be targeting. We already know they have been connected to Walker Kessler. Brian Windhorst of ESPN has linked the Knicks to Robert Williams III. We had some executives a couple of weeks ago connect Jonas Valanciunas to the Knicks. So there's been a number of centers connected to the Knicks at the trade deadline. But according to Ian Begley, he gives us the following updates about the Knicks and potentially what their plans are for that backup center position, if they're going to make a trade or not. Let's see what Begley has to say about it. According to Ian Begley, he says the following: I'm a little surprised that the Knicks haven't signed a veteran backup center at this point. They have opened the championship window with Bridges in that trade. It would surprise me if they waited until the trade deadline to address the center position. Mitchell Robinson is coming off of an ankle surgery. If he's ready for training camp, he'll still need some time to regain his conditioning and timing. And it's prudent to factor in Robinson's injury history. Precious Achiuwa is very capable as a backup center / power forward. Jericho Sims has shown promise, but is unproven in that role. Given that, it would surprise me if the Knicks were confident about the current state of the center position. I'd keep an eye on Nick Richards in Charlotte as a possible trade candidate as well, too. Same goes for Walker Kessler in Utah. Like Brian Windhorst noted, Robert Williams is a name to monitor. Maybe Jonas Valanciunas? As far as backup centers and the trade deadline go, I know the Knicks talked to Atlanta this offseason about a deal involving Clint Capela. So maybe Capela is another name to watch for the Knicks come this trade deadline. That was a lot of names to review. He threw out Capela. He threw out Nick Richards. He threw out Robert Williams. He listed Jonas Valanciunas potentially as a name for the Knicks to watch. And again, he also named Walker Kessler. We've done a number of videos on Walker Kessler, why the Knicks ideally want to have him on the team, why it can't happen. Thank you, Danny Ainge. And why likely, unless Danny Ainge lowers that price, Kessler to the Knicks will never happen. Nick Richards has always been an interesting choice here, guys, because the thing with Nick Richards is I think that's a feasible choice. But the Hornets roster, they're very limited in the centers that they have. If they lose one center, it could mean disaster for their entire season. Now, maybe they're going to have disaster either way. And if that happens, maybe come the trade deadline, if they know that, they'll bite the bullet and they'll trade a Nick Richards to another contending team. Hopefully that team is being the Knicks, because I do think he has a role on this team. Playing a backup minutes on the Knicks squad that's contending for a chip, I think that's a perfect role for him. He'll give us great minutes. He'll allow our other players to rest. That's the key there. And if you have a healthy Mitchell Robinson, making sure he rests, making sure he's not playing more than 25 minutes a night, that's important. You get a player that's young like Nick Richards, somebody who doesn't have a long injury history, somebody who can stay in the game for long periods of time. Yeah, I want somebody like that. And of all the choices that we read out so far, in terms of a trade, I like Jonas, but I also like Nick Richards. I think it makes sense only if the cost makes sense and if Charlotte really wants to deal him. But that's the whole thing. That's really what's stopping me from thinking that this is realistic. I don't think Charlotte would ever realistically trade him because it would hurt them more than it would help them, unless they're already hurting. That's the only situation where I think that they would do it anyways. But again, very good from Ian Begley here. And he does mention Robert Williams, a number of videos you mentioned about Williams, the fit, the injury concerns. Definitely watch those videos if you haven't done so already. But the last name he mentions here that I want to talk about, Clint Capela. Clint Capela is a very interesting name because potentially you can say the Knicks could target him for a trade, right? Is there also a potential that he could be bought out and potentially be on the buyout market come February and March? Because I also think that's a possibility. Now, I don't know who he would sign with at that point in time, what the contract would look like at that point in time, but you got to figure people on the buyout market want to sign with teams that are contenders. And if it means taking a little bit less so you can join a contender and potentially win a championship, you might do that. Now, I don't know where Capela's head is. I don't know where his head is. I don't know where his mind is. I don't know where the contract situation is. I don't know what's going to happen with him and the Hawks. All I know is last time I checked, they didn't look like they were going to renew on any contract. It looked like he was going to walk into free agency at some point in time. And it does look like the Hawks want to get something back for him, something more than anything. But if they can't get exactly what they want back, and maybe nothing makes sense, maybe they buy him out. And if that happens, I see the Knicks going after him, signing him to a roster spot, getting him on this team. And there you go right there. That's your backup center and potentially your starting center if anything happens or anybody goes down. That's why Capela is an intriguing name to look at, because if you look at his skill set, he fits what this Knicks team would need. He has a rebounding ability that Tom Thibodeau would love. He can block shots. He can stay healthy and available and on the court. And I think that's the biggest sell of all. The fact that he can remain healthy and be as active as he is on the defensive end is something you can sell to Tom Thibodeau and this Knicks organization. And if available on the buyout market, I think the Knicks, among other contenders, would swarm to try to get him on this team. And you can understand why. In terms of his skill set and Tom Thibodeau as head coach of this Knicks team, the match between those two is perfect. But if the Hawks want to make a trade happen with the Knicks come the deadline and they lower their cost, it makes sense for the Knicks. It's not hurting anybody. We keep our core pieces. Maybe the Knicks go ahead and do that type of deal, although I don't really see why they would, but maybe they do that if it makes sense and they're getting something else in the package as well too. They do that deal. They get Capela on this team. But again, it still solves something for them, right? They now have a backup center that can play starter minutes in the event that Mitchell Robinson goes down. That's why Capela is a very compelling name on this list. Maybe more than anybody else, because definitely the contract is something you don't want to accept. You don't want to absorb. That's why looking at him as a buyout candidate makes even more sense. I don't really see the Knicks trading for him. They didn't want to trade for him before. I don't think they're really going to want to trade for him now. Maybe cost has something to do with it. But I think the interest for Capela might come if he joins the buyout market. And I think the Knicks would swarm to get him. That's something to consider. If the Hawks lower the price on a trade, maybe they consider that as well too, them being the Knicks. But a lot of factors here regarding who the targets are for the Knicks at the deadline. To break it down for you guys again, JaVale McGee, Bismack Biyombo, two guys you can look at in terms of free agents. Nick Richards, Walker Kessler, Robert Williams, Jonas Valanciunas. Four names you can look at in terms of potential trade options. Another trade option and maybe buyout option, maybe the only option like that on this list, is Clint Capela. And for me, Walker Kessler is ideal, not going to happen. Clint Capela, if he's bought out, definitely happening. Jonas Valanciunas, final straw. They can't get anything else done. No other type of deals. And the Valanciunas deal is still available on the table. The Lakers didn't go after him. I think the Knicks have enough to get that deal done and get Valanciunas on this team. Valanciunas might be the most realistic, honestly, apart from everybody else on this team. But the buyout market can change that, especially if Capela's name reaches there. If you enjoyed these clips from the live show, be sure to subscribe to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss any new episodes or when we go live. Thanks for watching, Knicks fans, and until next time, peace.